Dal9 sat in the quiet archives of the Vorthok Empire, his 6 eyes scanning through thousands of old data files. The blue light from his screen made strange shadows on the metal walls around him. He had been working for 12 hours straight, looking through records from dead civilizations. Most of the files were boring reports about trade or weather patterns on planets that no longer existed. But this file was different. It came from the R'Lani civilization, a species that had disappeared 3,000 years ago. The R'Lani had been smart, maybe even smarter than the Vorthok. They had built great cities and traveled between stars before most species even discovered fire. Then one day, they were gone. No one knew why. No one knew why. Dal-9 opened the damaged file. The data was corrupted, with big chunks missing. The words flickered on his screen, some clear, others broken into pieces. The file header read, "Urgent warning, species classification. Highest threat level." His tentacles moved quickly over the keyboard as he tried to repair the damaged sections. Slowly, fragments of text appeared. Species designation: human. Homeworld: third planet from Yellow Star. Classification: extreme caution required. Apex persistence hunters. Warning: do not engage without full fleet support. They appear weak, but data corrupted. Never stop coming. Data corrupted. Made weapons from everything. Data corrupted. Too late to warn others. Dal-9 leaned back in his chair. The R'Lani had been afraid of something called humans. But that made no sense. He checked the galactic species database. No record of any species called humans existed. They must have died out long ago, just like the R'Lani. Still, something about the warning bothered him. The R'Lani had been careful people. They did not scare easily. What could make them write such a frightened message? He tried to repair more of the file, but the corruption was too severe. Only scattered words remained. Persistence, adaptation. Never surrender, bite back. The rest was digital static. Dal-9 printed the fragments and walked to the command center. The halls of the archive station were empty except for cleaning drones that swept the floors with mechanical precision. His footsteps echoed in the silence. High Commander Vexmore was reviewing battle reports when Dal-9 entered. The commander was a massive creature with thick, armor-like skin and 4 powerful arms. He looked up with irritation. "What is it, Archivist?" "I have important work to do." Dal-9 placed the printed fragments on the commander's desk. "I found this warning from the R'Lani civilization. They seemed very afraid of a species called humans. I thought you should know." Vexmore glanced at the papers and laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound that shook the windows. The R'Lani? Those weaklings died out because they were afraid of their own shadows. They probably got scared by some primitive species that threw rocks at them. But, sir, they called them apex persistence hunters. They said not to engage without full fleet support. "Archivist, look around you." Vexmore gestured to the screens, showing Vorthok fleets across the galaxy. "Control 200 star systems. We have weapons that can destroy planets. Our ships are faster than light itself. What could some extinct primitive species possibly do to us?" Dal-9 wanted to argue, but he knew better. The military never listened to archivists. "Should I continue researching the fragments?" "No, file it away and forget about it. Focus on useful work, like cataloging our recent conquests." Vexmore turned back to his reports, dismissing Dal-9 with a wave of his hand. As Dal-9 walked back to his archives, he could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. The R'Lani had been explorers and scientists. They had mapped half the galaxy before the Vorthok even left their homeworld. If they were afraid of humans, there had to be a good reason. Meanwhile, far beyond the edge of known space, something moved through the darkness between stars. The colony ship knew, Sol drifted silently through the void, its metal hull scarred by years of travel. Inside, 300 humans slept in hibernation pods, their bodies preserved in artificial sleep while their ship followed an automated distress signal. The ship's computer had detected the signal. 2 years ago, a standard rescue beacon, calling for help. The humans had changed course, hoping to find others like them, perhaps a colony in need of supplies or medical aid. they had no idea the signal was a trap. In the hibernation bay, Engineer Tejo's dreams were filled with images of Earth's green, forests, and blue oceans. Beside him, Manek Sora smiled in her sleep, dreaming of the new world they hoped to build. Teacher Yujin held her daughter Minji close, both of them unaware that their ship was flying toward the heart of Vorthok space. The ship's navigation system showed their destination, a mining colony in the Kepler 442 system, the beacon promised. Safety, supplies, and fellow humans. Instead, it would deliver them into the hands of an empire that had forgotten what it meant to face a species that refused to give up. Doll 9, still thinking about the warning when alarms began to sound throughout the archive station. Unknown ships had been detected entering Vorthok space. Ships that matched no known design in their databases. Commander Vectel stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching 3 strange ships approach through the darkness of space. His green skin gleamed under the red lights of the command center as he studied the vessels on his main screen. The ships were small, ugly things made of basic metal and powered by primitive chemical engines. They moved slowly like wounded animals limping through the void. "Analysis complete, Commander," reported his science officer, a thin creature with multiple eyes. The ships appear to be colony vessels. Basic construction, no energy shields, no plasma weapons. They are broadcasting on multiple frequencies, but we cannot understand their language. Vectel smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. This would be easy. The High Command had been pressuring him to find new sources of slave labor for the mining operations. These primitive beings would be perfect. "How many life forms aboard?" he asked. "Approximately 300 per ship, Commander." "They appear to be in some kind of suspended animation." "Excellent. Wake them up. I want them conscious when we take them." Vecthal turned to his weapons officer. "Disable their engines with minimal damage. We need the cargo intact." The Vorthok ships moved into attack position. Their weapons were designed to capture, not destroy. Energy beams struck the human vessels, frying their engine systems and leaving them helpless in space. The ships went dark, floating like dead metal in the emptiness. Inside the colony ship, new soul. Alarms screamed through the corridors. Engineer Tejo jerked awake in his hibernation pod as emergency lights flashed red around him. The pod hissed open, and he stumbled out onto the cold floor. His body ached from the long sleep, and his mind felt foggy. "What is happening?" he called out, but his voice was weak. Other pods were opening around him. Sadiq Sora pulled herself out of her pod, her black hair messy from sleep. She looked around the hibernation bay with confused eyes. "The engines," she said, listening to the sounds of the ship. "They are not working." Teacher Yujin woke up next, immediately looking for her daughter. 10-year-old Minji was still asleep in her pod, her small face peaceful. Yujin gently shook her awake. "Mama, are we there?" Minji asked in a sleepy voice. "I do not know, little one. Something is wrong." More people were waking up now. Farmer Dongsu, security guard Wu Jin, and dozens of others stumbled out of their pods. They had been traveling for 2 years, following a distress signal that promised help and safety. Now their ship was dead. In space, Tae-Ho made his way to the bridge, his legs still shaky from hibernation. The ship's computer was flashing error messages in bright red letters. All systems were offline, except for basic life support. "The engines are completely fried," he reported to the others. "Someone attacked us with some kind of energy weapon." Through the bridge windows, they could see lights approaching. Huge ships, much larger than their own, were moving toward them. The vessels were dark and threatening, covered in weapon systems that gleamed like metal teeth. "Are they here to help?" "Us?" asked Minji, pressing her face against the window. Before anyone could answer, the alien ships fired again. But this time, the beams were different. They cut through the hull of the new soul like a hot knife through butter, creating perfect holes for boarding tubes. "They are coming inside," Wujin said, his hand moving to where his security weapon should have been. But they had no weapons on a colony ship. They were farmers, teachers, and engineers, not soldiers. the boarding tubes attached to their ship with loud banging sounds. Then the airlocks opened, and the aliens came through. They were nightmare creatures, tall and powerful with thick armor and multiple arms. Their faces were hidden behind dark helmets, but their glowing red eyes were visible through the glass. They carried weapons that hummed with dangerous energy. "Please," Tejo said, stepping forward with his hands raised. "We are peaceful. You're just colonists looking for a new home." The aliens did not respond. They could not understand human language, and they did not care to try. Their orders were simple. Capture the primitive beings and process them for slave. Labor.so-Ra tried speaking in different languages: Korean, English, Chinese, Spanish. She made peaceful gestures with her hands, showing that they meant no harm. The aliens watched her with cold interest. Like scientists studying interesting insects, Commander Vectel entered the ship, his massive form filling the corridor. He looked at the gathered humans with satisfaction. They were small, weak-looking creatures, with soft skin and no natural weapons. "Perfect for the mines. Standard processing," he told his soldiers in their own language. "These Class F beings will work well in the deep tunnels. They appear intelligent enough to follow orders, but too weak to cause trouble." The aliens fired their neural stunners. The humans collapsed one by one, their bodies going limp as the energy weapons shut down their nervous systems. Tejo was the last to fall, his eyes meeting Vectel's through the alien's helmet. As darkness took him, Tejo heard the commander's words being translated by the ship's computer. "Another successful harvest. Process them quickly and distribute them to the mining facilities." The humans had come seeking salvation. Instead, they had found their captors. 6 months had passed since the humans arrived at the Kepler 7 mining facility. Overseer Grix-12 walked through the tunnels with pride. Watching his new workers move or carts through the dark passages, the humans had been perfect additions to his operation. They worked without complaint, followed orders exactly, and never caused trouble like some of the other slave species. Tejo pushed his heavy cart along the metal tracks, his clothes dirty from the mine dust. To Grix-12, he looked like a broken man who had accepted his fate. The overseer had no idea that Tejo was counting his steps, memorizing every turn in the tunnel, and noting the location of every power cable that ran along the walls. "Move faster." "Human," growled Guard Vexit, poking Tejo with an electric stick. "The quota must be met." Tejo nodded and picked up his pace. He had learned to speak some of the alien language over the past months, enough to understand orders and avoid punishment. But he used this skill for more than just survival. He listened to the guards when they thought he could not understand them. In the deeper tunnels, Farmer Dongsu worked alongside security guard Wu Jin. They were supposed to be clearing rock from a collapsed section, but they were actually mapping the ventilation system. Dongsu had grown up working with his hands, and he could tell which air ducts were important and which were just decoration. Main air pump is 3 levels up," Dongsu whispered in Korean. "If we could reach it, ... Too many guards," Wu Jin replied quietly. "But I saw a maintenance shaft near Section C. It connects to the power grid." They spoke in their native language, which the aliens had not bothered to learn. To their captors, human speech was just noise, like the sounds that animals made. This was their first mistake. In the medical bay, Sora cleaned wounds and handed out medicine to injured workers. The aliens thought she was just a nurse, useful for keeping their slaves healthy and productive. They did not know that she was actually a doctor who had studied alien biology during her capture. "Your breathing system is very different from ours," she said to Guard Kep 5 in broken alien speech, pretending to struggle with the words. "I want to learn to help treat humans better." The guard was happy to explain. He told her about their lung structure, their blood chemistry, and their weak points. He thought he was teaching a primitive being about superior alien science. He did not realize he was giving away military secrets. Teacher Yu Jin worked in the communication center, cleaning equipment and organizing files. Her daughter Minji helped her, small enough to reach into tight spaces that the adult workers could not access. The aliens saw them as harmless janitors, too simple to understand the complex technology around them, but Yujin had taught computer science before the journey. She understood how networks worked, and she was learning how the alien systems operated. When the guards were not watching, She memorized access codes and network layouts. Minji, with her excellent memory, helped her remember the long strings of alien numbers and symbols. The main communication array sends signals to 12 different star systems, Yujin whispered to her daughter in Korean. If we could access it at the right time, ... I remember the code for the emergency broadcast system, Minji replied. The guard used it yesterday when that machine broke down. The aliens had made their second mistake. They thought children were even less dangerous than adults. In the evening, when the work shift ended, the humans were locked in their sleeping quarters. The aliens believed this was enough to keep them contained. They did not post guards inside the human areas because they saw no threat from such weak creatures. This was their third mistake. Tejo sat on his thin mattress, drawing diagrams on a piece of cloth with a burnt stick. Round him, other humans gathered quietly. They looked like tired workers having casual conversations, but they were actually planning something much more important. The power grid has a central control room on level 5, Tejo said softly. Dongsu found the access shaft, and Wujin knows the guard schedules. Sora learned about their breathing systems, added Yujin. They cannot handle certain gas mixtures that would not hurt us. The communication center can reach all the mining facilities in this system, said Minji, her young voice serious. If we coordinate the timing, ... They spoke in whispers, planning and preparing. Each human had learned different pieces of information. During their months of captivity, separately, these pieces meant nothing. Together, they formed a complete picture of their prison and how to escape from it. The aliens had made their biggest mistake of all. They thought that because the humans had stopped fighting, they had given up. They thought that quiet compliance meant acceptance of slavery. They did not understand that humans were not broken. They were learning. Every day, the humans gathered more information. Every night, they shared what they had discovered. They were not just planning an escape, or planning a revolution. Overseer Grixtwelve would later tell investigators that the humans had seemed perfectly controlled right up until the moment they struck. He would say that there had been no warning signs, no indication that his perfect workers were planning anything. He was wrong. The signs were there. Aliens had just forgotten how to recognize the look in the eyes of a cornered predator. Uprising began at exactly 0300 standard time across 12 star systems. In the deep tunnels of Kepler 7, Tejo lay on his mattress pretending to sleep. Around him, 300 humans waited in the darkness. No alarms had sounded, no guards suspected anything. The aliens believed their slaves were safely locked away for the night. They were wrong. Tejo sat up and made a small hand signal across. The sleeping quarters, humans began to move. They had practiced this moment in their minds for weeks, planning every step. Dongsu and Wujin crawled toward the ventilation shaft they had discovered months ago. The opening was too small for alien bodies, but humans were smaller and more flexible. Remember, Tejo whispered, "We only get one chance." Dongsu squeezed into the narrow shaft, his farmer's muscles helping him pull his body through the tight space. Behind him, Wujin carried tools they had stolen from the mining equipment. The aliens never counted their simple digging implements. They did not think prisoners could make weapons from shovels and metal bars. This was their mistake. In the medical bay, Suara moved quietly through the darkened rooms. She had spent months learning the alien guard schedules. She knew that guard. Kep 5 would be alone at his station, monitoring the prisoner quarters on his security screens. He trusted the locked doors to keep the humans contained. Sora entered his station carrying a medical kit. "Emergency," she said in broken alien speech. "Human worker sick. Need medicine from storage." Kep 5 looked up from his screens with annoyance. "Get it tomorrow." "No medical work during sleep period? Human might die," Sora insisted. "You get in trouble if worker dies." The guard sighed and stood up to unlock the medical storage room. As he turned his back, Sora struck. She had learned exactly where to hit to collapse an alien's breathing system. Kep 5 fell to the floor, gasping for air that would not come. Sora quickly took his weapons and access cards. "I am sorry," she whispered, but she did not hesitate. These creatures had enslaved her people. Meanwhile, in the communication center, Yujin and Mingji moved like shadows between the equipment racks. The night shift guards were watching entertainment programs on their personal screens bored by the quiet evening. They did not notice two small figures crawling under the raised floor. Where the network cables ran, Yujin had memorized the system layout during her months of cleaning duty. Her fingers found the main transmission array controls. Her perfect memory whispered the access codes they had observed. The system came online silently. "Broadcasting now," Yujin said softly into her stolen communicator. Across the galaxy, humans in other facilities heard her signal and began their own attacks. Down in the power control room, Dongsu had emerged from the ventilation shaft. The room was empty except for humming machinery. The aliens had never thought to guard their power systems from the inside. Who could possibly reach them through the narrow maintenance shafts? Dongsu began his work. He'd spent his life fixing farm equipment, and machines were machines, whether human or alien, he found the main power distribution board and began rewiring it. When he was finished, the prison's security systems would turn against their creators. Throughout the facility, the uprising spread like fire. Humans emerged from supposedly secure areas, carrying improvised weapons and moving with deadly purpose. The aliens had seen them as broken slaves for so long that they could not understand what was happening in Section C. Wujin led a group of humans against the main guard post. The aliens were bigger and stronger, but the humans fought as a team. They used mining equipment as weapons, turning picks and shovels into deadly tools. More importantly, they used the knowledge Sora had gathered about alien weaknesses. "Aim for the breathing holes," Wujin called out. "Their armor does not protect their—" The guards tried to fight back, but their weapons were designed to stun individual prisoners, not stop a coordinated assault. The humans moved like water, flowing around obstacles and attacking from unexpected directions. Overseer Grix 12 woke up in his comfortable quarters to the sound of alarms. His security screens showed chaos throughout the facility. Humans were everywhere, taking control of critical systems. How was this possible? They were primitive creatures without weapons or training. He tried to call for help, but the communication systems were broadcasting human voices instead of following his commands. He tried to lock down the facility, but the power grid was no longer under his control. Every system he relied on had been turned against him. "Impossible," he said to himself. But as Taeho and his team reached the command center, Grix 12 realized the truth. These humans had never been broken. They had been watching, learning, and planning. They had turned the aliens' own overconfidence into a weapon. The last thing Grix 12 saw was Taeho's face, no longer showing the false submission of a slave. Instead, it showed the determined expression of a predator who had finally cornered his prey. Across 12 star systems, the pattern repeated. Facilities that had seemed secure fell in ours. The aliens discovered too late that they had not captured helpless primitives. They had awakened something far more dangerous than they could imagine. They had awakened humanity. Doll 9 crouched in the ruins of the Vorthok Central Archive, his 6 eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. The great library that had once held the knowledge of 1,000 worlds was now a broken shell. Smoke drifted through holes in the walls. Where human weapons had torn through the metal, the air smelled of burnt circuits and fear. Around him lay the bodies of his colleagues, the other archivists who had tried to flee when the humans came. Doll 9 had hidden in the deepest vaults while the battle raged above. Now he was alone, the last keeper of galactic knowledge. Surrounded by the wreckage of his civilization, his tentacles shook as he connected to the emergency power system. The main computers were damaged, but some files remained intact. He had to find it. The ancient warning from the Relani, the message that everyone had ignored. "Please work," he whispered to the flickering screen. "I need to understand what we did wrong." The file was still corrupted, but the emergency systems had more power than his old terminal. Slowly, piece by piece, the ancient data began to rebuild itself. Words appeared on the screen that had been hidden for months by digital decay. Doll 9 read the complete message for the first time. Urgent warning to all galactic civilizations. Species designation: a human. Homeworld: third planet from Yellow Star. Classification: extinction level threat. These beings appear primitive by technological standards, but this is their greatest deception. They are not the strongest species, nor the fastest, nor the most intelligent. But they possess a trait that makes them uniquely dangerous among all sapient life. They never accept defeat as permanent.
All-Nine's breathing
Grew rapid as he continued reading. Humans view every problem as solvable, and every enemy as defeatable. They lack natural weapons, but create them from any available materials. They have no pack hierarchy, but fight with perfect coordination when threatened. They appear to surrender, but are actually gathering intelligence. Most critically, they learn from every defeat and return stronger. The archivist's hands trembled as more text appeared. We made first contact with humans 60 years ago. They seemed like ideal subjects for our expansion program. Small, weak, and technologically inferior. We conquered their outer colonies with ease. They begged for mercy. They offered to serve us. We thought we had broken them. Dalneen knew what came next, but he had to read it. We were wrong. Every captured human was a spy. Every act of submission was an act of intelligence gathering. They learned our weaknesses, our technologies, our military strategies. When they finally struck, they turned our own weapons against us. They used our confidence as a weapon. They made us destroy ourselves. The file showed images now, pictures of the Relani homeworld in flames, cities burning, ships falling from the sky, bodies in the streets. The humans did not just defeat us, they erased us. When we realized our mistake, it was too late to warn anyone. They move like a plague through the galaxy, appearing weak until the moment they strike. If you encounter them, do not make our error. Do not underestimate them. Do not assume their submission is real. Most importantly, do not let any of them escape to warn others. Dalneen heard footsteps in the corridor outside. Heavy boots walking steadily through the debris. He looked up from the screen, his heart's beating fast with terror and hope. Engineer Tejo appeared in the doorway, no longer wearing the dirty clothes of a mine worker. Instead, he wore the uniform of a human fleet commander, clean and pressed, and decorated with symbols of victory. Behind him stood teacher Yujin Medic Sora, and dozens of other humans who had transformed from prisoners into conquerors. Please, Dalneen said, his voice breaking. I found the message. I tried to warn them. Look at the screen. I understand now. Tejo walked slowly into the archive, his eyes taking in the destruction around them. He looked at the ancient warning. On the screen, reading the words that had tried to save his captors from their own arrogance. We know about the Relani, he said quietly. We found their records when we took the first Vorthok command ship. They were good people. They tried to coexist with us peacefully. Then why? Dalneen asked. Why did you destroy them? We did not destroy them, Sora said, stepping forward. They destroyed themselves. They attacked human colonies, enslaved our people, and refused to listen when we tried to negotiate. Just like you did, Yuja knelt beside the terrified archivist. Relani warning was correct. We do not forget, we do not forgive, and we do not stop. But we also do not start fights. We finish them. Dalneen looked at the faces around him. These humans did not look like monsters. They looked tired, sad, and very determined. What happens now? You become the last witness, Tejo said. You will record what happened here. You will tell the story of how the Vorthok Empire fell. Maybe someday, when other species find your records, they will be smarter than you were. But there is no one left to warn, Dalneen whispered. There will be, Minji said, speaking for the first time. The little girl had grown up during the war, and her eyes held knowledge that no child should possess. There are always others, and maybe they will listen. The humans left Dalneen alone with his broken archive and his complete warning. Outside, their ships waited to carry them to the next system, the next challenge. The next species that thought humans were weak, they had learned the hardest lesson in the galaxy. Humans bite back.